when I moved into my apartment last year, I did not think I was moving into a German neighborhood. And I wasn't, not really, but I did notice that every night, way too late, I would hear very, very, very loud yelling. And I would listen for a few seconds and I would say, that's German. And it kept happening every single night. Until the weather got cold, at least, and then it stopped. But now that the weather's nice again, it's happening. Matter of fact, I heard some German not 5 minutes ago. And I was reminded of it because this evening I managed to lock myself out of the apartment. And as I was waiting in front of my door like an idiot, I noticed that there is a petition going around on my for my building and like the buildings around us, do something about this noise that's happening every night. And turns out I'd actually kind of figured out that the Germans in our neighborhood were from this hostel that is like literally like 2 seconds from where I am right now. So I just thought we had a very strong German population. And I guess in a way we do, because the Germans love coming here. To this hostel specifically. I hear them in the morning too, not so loudly, obviously, but I'm leaving my little area going into the city, and I'm like, why do I hear so much German? And obviously this makes me think of the past and my favorite Czech movie, The Cremator. But it is fitting for the subject of this video because I have long been an admirer of the German school of Pokemon because so much of it, fits in with my own philosophy of how the game should be played. Innovation, for sure, but, steady reliability, almost robotic precision, kind of like that wonderful Berlin techno I enjoy so much. Like Basic Channel, that's some really good stuff. I'm a big fan of German music in general. Can is one of my favorite bands. Can? I don't know how you say it. I assume it's Can. But the drummer, Yaki Liebzy, is incredible. He and Max Roach are my favorites. I do play drums. I don't know how many of the kind viewers are aware of that, but I do. Yeah. And I also really like... I don't know how you say this band's name. It means collapsing new buildings. Einstürzende Neubauten. Yeah, I'm sorry. But I do really like Halber Mensch is an incredible track and a great album, but the title track is just astonishing. So, yeah. And, of course, there's so many great German movie directors. It's ridiculous. Rainer Werner Fassbinder is one of my very favorites. So, I say all that to say, I think I have free license to criticize the Germans for their Pokemoning. Jokes. But it is fascinating how you can often ascribe a sort of national identity to the way players of a certain country, approach the game. For a long time, I thought that my first video about this would be about the French way of Pokemoning, and obviously this does not apply to every German player, this does not apply to every French player, but there is like a pattern of how they see the game, and I couldn't possibly tell you, where that comes from, but it is something you notice. There's also even like a style of team in Oris and Sun and Moon called like Italian balance. It usually involves like bulky offense with a random Chansey on it, or not random Chansey, but with a Chansey on it, and then there's also Volcarona and Mega Mawile, and you look at a team like that and you say, that's Italian. You look at, that's the most prominent national example I can think of right now, but in the past when the French were dominating Gen 5 OU, in the current gen, you would look at a team and say, oh yeah, that team is super French. There was a player named Remedy who had a style of offense that was distinctly his and also distinctly French. Now, I don't think that the Germans quite have the same level of national identity in terms of the teams they use, but what they lack in that kind of like distinct flavor of, oh, they really like, I don't know, Heracross or whatever, they make up for in the fact that their teams are always so solid. and obviously this video is speaking in very, very broad generalizations, but I've been around German Pokemon players for a very long time, so please bear with me. Yeah, so the thing is that their teams are generally very solid. You don't see a German player bringing junk a lot of the time. You know, that seems to be, I don't know if that's a distinctly American phenomenon, but I feel like whenever someone, I mean, obviously every nationality is prone to this, okay? You know, you don't want to be one of those people who goes, well, not every, of course, I'm not saying that. I feel the need to reaffirm this a billion times. But the national identity of Germany, as far as teams go, seems to just be, you know, solid stuff overall. Obviously, this ranges across a variety of team styles, but I would say generally they're known most for either the really old gens, you know, GSC and Advance, and you think Conflict, of course, but then there's also other players like Sapientia and Jira and Fakes. Although he's more for Advance than GSA, but you know, you get the point. And then, you know, obviously there's a lot of dallying in DPP specifically, like TV Raka or Parengon, one of my very favorite players, and who was for a time the best DPP player around. But then again, the German Renaissance, you know, really came around with Oris, and you know, Oris was known as, you know, like a German tier for a very long time. Which is you know, kind of funny, but you know, you had players like X-Ray and Cosine 180 making the tier known for, you know, being, you know, sort of molded in their image. And you know, whatever that team style was, it didn't just mean reliable as in, you know, bulky balance. Obviously, that is a lot of what Oris is, but you know, even their bulky offense teams, for example, or their straight-up offense teams, like Cosine 180's famous Focus Sash spam, that was a very reliable sort of team. It's not the kind of matchup fishing thing, and so again, I really appreciate the Germans for that. But yeah, a lot of the innovations in Oris, you know, come from Germany, and I think that's fascinating. There's another great Oris player named Persephone, who was you know, very good in doing this exact kind of thing. You know, it's funny how what you associate with Germany, you know, in real life, you know, reliability and robotic almost in how efficient they are, you know, I wouldn't quite ascribe that to the German Pokemon player base, who are known for being rather hot-headed, actually. Not that that's a bad thing, of course. You know, I appreciate the passion, similarly to why I appreciate the French. But yeah, they're very, very consistent in that regard. So I'd have, however, although we're not really talking about, you know, German team styles, we are talking about the different styles of German player. And for this, I have indeed prepared some different genres we're going to look at. If you'll excuse me for 1 second. Okay. Alright, so now, while we're not talking about you know, teams, we're talking about, you know, the German play style, let's say. And I think their general play style resembles that of their teams, which is, you know, not to say that they're not extremely, you know, aggressive when need be. And I promise I'm not trying to make, you know, any sort of like innuendo here. You know, this, I really mean this. Like a player like X-Ray has an incredible killer instinct when it comes to, you know, making the big move in a clutch situation. You know, that's what's really good. That's what really separates the best players. You know, when you can make that big move in a test game, cool. You understand what you could do theoretically. You know, when it really counts, that's something else entirely. You know, a lot of good players never manage to take that final step. So, and X-Ray, you know, has been doing it effortlessly pretty much the whole time he's been around in the competitive scene. So, this kind of like robotic efficiency, I keep calling it robotic just because the German players who are most renowned, they are incredibly consistent. They're not really streaky players. I think it's funny because I don't know, what you can describe this to, but I myself in the past have been a very streaky player, and that's really bothered me about myself. And you look at a country like Spain, which also has a rather distinct national identity in terms of how its players play, and you see that a lot of Spanish players are also really streaky. When they're in the groove, they are unstoppable, and when they have a bad season, they really have a bad season. But Germans, for some reason, they are just always in that, zone of, consistency, never, anything too extreme, but really, really good at just never really... I don't really think that this comes at the cost of, like, those insane highs, because, again, I mean, I guess you could say that your average, strong German player is less likely to, make the kind of oh my god play that, a player from a country that is known for greater passion or whatever is. But I think it depends, obviously. But on average, you are also going to get much more reliability out of these players. Now, I am singing the praises of the German playstyle, of course. But there's also a downside to Pokemon Germany style. And I say this with all due respect. Except for this next part, actually. Now, to be unmistakably clear, I am not calling Germans cheaters. I'm just referring to the fact that they have, the most famous cheater in Pokemon history, in Mazar, who was such an incredible cheater that, well, I made a video dedicated to it, which I'll pull up in a second for those who would like the visual aid. And for those who are just listening, don't worry, I just have a lot of great German players' greatest hits playing on the screen. Yeah, now Germany had a reputation for, like, ghosting for a while, which that was really unfair because that was from an era where ghosting was so prevalent, they just happened to be the ones who got caught. So I don't count that against them at all. What I instead am referring to is Mazar, who cheated to ridiculous extents, even by the standards of the old Wild West. He was really something, because he cheated, he got caught. I think he might have gotten caught twice, and before he pulled off his ultimate stratagem of literally using a bot to scout his opponent's teams, and then putting together outrageous counter teams, to win SPL. He went undefeated in spectacular fashion in Ubers, and he was involved. He wasn't involved in the famous double kick Terrakion game, but it was his bot that gave the player who was using double kick Terrakion to beat Sash Smeargle. So, by association, good lord. And the other cheater is a player named Blurry. Now, I personally have a vendetta against Blurry because I have been hearing, heinous shit said to me since I started in competitive Pokemon, back in 2009. And before I started playing myself, then I lurked for a year and a half because I wasn't COPPA legal. And, I saw it, before then. So I'm no stranger to that. But Blurry said something so repulsive to me once. And when I told him how repulsive it was, he said something even more disgusting. And that was the one time I've genuinely wanted to physically fight someone from the internet, from the Pokemon world. So, he wasn't cheating because of that. Well, he was, because he was banned for, like, LARPing as a Nazi or something. I don't know how much of that was, edgy teenager nonsense, how much of it was real. So I don't want to comment too strongly on that, but, although, obviously, if he is, then, fuck him. There can be no two ways about that. But, that I understand that everyone goes through, like, a mega edgy phase in their online Pokemoning. But yeah, so my personal beef with him aside, and for those who are looking for the visual aid, this is the video of mine regarding the Mazar scandal, called the greatest cheating scandal, greatest in quotation marks. And then regarding Blurry, there's another video called the attempted cheating that succeeded, then failed. And you can watch this video for the full context, because it's a good one. But the gist is that Blurry brought when Sandwich Excadrill was legal, but you couldn't use it alongside Sandstream T-Tar, he brought Sandrush Excadrill on a team without Sandstream T-Tar. So if he faced an opposing Sand team, he would have, a T-Tar in Sand, so it could, boost its Spadef and counter Latios and all that. But he would also have a Sandrush Excadrill, which you could not on a regular Sand team. And you would say, oh, well, that's actually interesting. That's a big risk to take if you're that confident you're going to face an opposing Sand team. But the thing is that Blurry planned to disconnect if he didn't face a Sand team, and then he would put Sandstream on his T-Tar and change the Excadrill to Sandforce or Moldbreaker, probably Sandforce. And I would say it's a shame. That was my instinct, because Blurry was a very, very, very good Gen 5 OU player, but that doesn't fucking matter because he was a jackass. So yeah, he was banned for LARPing as a whatever the hell he was doing, and then he was playing on an alt, and then I realized it was his alt, and then that alt got banned for playing in Smoking Tour, and then he PM'd me all this really repugnant shit. Even for someone, trying to be an edgy whatever the hell, it was disgusting. I hope he's not like that anymore. But yeah, he's on here, not because of that, but because of his cheating. Now, there is another genre of German, and it's kind of funny because probably the most well-known German is, of course, CBB, our very own Crash and Boom Bang. But the thing is about CBB is that he's not really... This is going to sound really weird, but stick with me. CBB is not really considered German in the way the other Germans are. This is... I really don't have a true explanation for this, but you just gotta trust me from, being... Well, it's more than just you gotta trust me, bro. But it is... you gotta trust me from being around long enough. And that a lot of the Germans, being part of Team Germany in World Cup, for example, was, a big part of the culture, and, they would spam things in German, national pride, nothing wrong with that. They would say, like, Los Ets and, things like that. And, that was cool and all. And they also spoke, even though their English was very, very good, they still spoke with a distinct, kind of... They had a way of speaking. They had a rhythm, or not so much a rhythm, because I guess it was the spoken, but just they would phrase this much more elegantly than me, by the way, right now. I don't really have a good... Actually, no, I do have a good excuse. I'm tired. You know what I did today? I ran a tram down. I ran down an entire street, basically a city block, and I chased that tram down and caught it. I was really proud of myself. I did so in, like, dress shoes, too. They were not conducive to running. They were not thankful for that. So, yeah, as I was, jetting down the street, I was, some guy smiled at me. He saw me flying. It was really great. And then, I played basketball, so, yeah, that's my excuse for not being as on top of my... Yes, I realized, I definitely hit a sore spot here. Anyway, so the way these Germans... It would be perfect English, but you could just tell that it was a second language, right? And not really in a bad way, they wouldn't be making grammar mistakes. There was just something about it that I'm sure if I broke it down a little more, examined it, I would be able to put a more precise finger on it. Although I also think that part of it might just be me knowing that they're German. But the point in relation to CBB is that, he has a very distinct, he speaks like a native. He has, and that is a significant distinction from the way that the other Germans would speak, and he wouldn't like use the cute little German mannerisms, like throwing random German into sentences, or certain German emojis, or not emojis. We used to call them emoticons. Yeah, like or smiley faces, whatever. That Germans would use, and he wouldn't. I'm really struggling to find an example because it's been a long time, but. Yeah, CBB also was not really on team. He was not on Team Germany. I think he was only on it in like 2013, 2014, and after that he just wasn't on Team Germany. So he wasn't really part of their group. They were an incredible World Cup team, and would have been even better with him around, of course. But yeah, so CBB is kind of a distinct genre of German unto his own, and also in play style, I think. Just because CBB takes really big swings. He's very innovative and an incredible player, of course. Understands the game like few ever have. But you remember that earlier thing where your average German is going to always bring something solid, but is going to wow you less. Well, CBB is known for bringing strong teams, obviously, but he also pushes things really far, sometimes too far. And he has that. Greater passion, I guess you could say, like you could ascribe to the Spanish players I was mentioning earlier, and famously hot-headed too, of course. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I know it all too well. So, yeah, he is more likely to bring something that burns out, but he's also likelier to bring something that you look at and go, wow. So, yeah, and I don't know if that's... I don't think it's related to the fact that he, I don't know, understand why... Or understand. I don't remember exactly why he speaks English, like a native speaker. I think it's just the way he... there was another great German player from a long time ago, Ginku, who later changed his name to Mazinger. And I think he went by Z for a little while, but basically... Yeah, he hosted SPL for 1 year, and everyone called him host, and that was funny. But, yeah, he also spoke, like, native-level English. It was the kind of thing where, they make Americans look stupid because they never make a mistake at all. Meanwhile, you got, fucking Americans over here, can't tell the difference between there, and there, among other embarrassments. But yeah, he was also that other kind of, non-German German, if we want to put it like this. I'm not saying that they didn't feel any connection to their motherland or anything like that, but just in regards to the Germans, more associated with Team Germany, cosine, fakes, conflict, X-ray, what I tried to say like three at the same time. You get my point. Yeah, so though they stand out in that kind of genre. Now, another thing I really appreciate about many German players is that they are incredibly humble. And one example I'll use is Rilus, who is one of my favorite Gen 7 OU players to watch. I think he is the epitome of like German excellence to me because he is incredibly good with the fundamentals. And this does not just mean that he understands how to play the game the easy way. No, he is so unbelievably rock solid. Brings good teams. He is almost the Gliscor whisperer. I mean, I covered his game against Brofist last year as one of the greatest battles, and obviously that was a tour de force performance from Brofist, in a career full of them. But the fact that he's playing Rilus is part of what made it so impressive. Rilus is incredibly sturdy. Like, this guy does not mess up. It's almost surreal, and his teams are so good. And again, the Gliscor Whisperer. This guy wields Gliscor like nobody else. I mean, there have been plenty of Gliscor Whisperers, of course. Speaking of Spanish players, Trosco also performed miracles with Gliscor on a regular basis. But in my mind, when you think about Gliscor and Gen 7. And I think Trosco did it more in Gen 6. Gen 7 Gliscor, though, Rilus, he understood this Pokemon on a fundamental level. He he could take on Mamoswines with his Gliscor. Pretty is one way you could look at it. Obviously, it's an exaggeration, but you would throw ice move after ice move after ice move, and somehow I could barely even explain it. His Gliscor would just beat everything anyway, which is partially something Gliscor did in general, but he really, really got the most out of it. So, and what I really appreciate about Rilus, though, is that he's an incredible player. It brings good teams, understands the game, pretty much my platonic ideal of a player, but he's also the nicest guy in the world. Can't imagine him ever, shit-talking someone. And the thing is that also that he's incredibly humble, and this I really appreciate. Especially as competitive Pokemon turns very often, very quickly turns into a dumbass pissing contest where everyone yells about their own achievements and refuses to let them stand for themselves. Rilus just kind of quietly does his thing, and he's always there, always. And I appreciate that. I appreciate when a player does not need to tell you about how great they are, and just lets their game speak for themselves. So yeah, that kind of humility is present in a lot of German players. But there is a flip side to that coin. Yeah. So with the German ego, it's either like the epitome of like humility and no ego at all, and like, I'm just trying to play the game the best I can. I hope it works out. I'm fortunate that I don't get unlucky. Stuff like that. And that's, guys like Rilus or guys like TV Raka, aka Parengon, or Majin Tupac Z, for a long time considered the best advanced player in my mind. Still, had a feel for the tier like few ever had. You remember earlier I mentioned that advanced used to be a very German metagame. When Advance was the current generation, then the Germans played with their own set of rules. They had like a limit of 3 baton passers per team, things like that. They were the real deal. And I think when GSC was the current gen, they were popularizing these aggressive explosion teams when they were when the metagame was as stally as it ever got, in times of Celebi. So they were really forward thinking, and yeah. So I got a little sidetracked there, but yeah, those kinds of players, like Majin, Parengon, and Rilus, they're super nice. But then there's the other side, where the German player can be the most. It's a blend of like becoming the most arrogant person you've ever met in your life, and or incredible social awkwardness. And I say this with all due respect and love for these players and these guys, because I think they're great players and great, and good guys in general, and no one is perfect, etc. However, I have noticed this as a pattern of behavior enough to where some friends of mine have lovingly referred to this as the German disease. I'm sorry if that sounds mean, but here's what I'm referring to. Okay, so another one of those contenders for, the best German player, most iconic German player in any case, is Conflict, right? Now, Conflict's mastery over GSC cannot be disputed by anyone. He's been, incredible at GSC since before many players today were even aware of competitive Pokemon. However, and he's a good guy, for sure. However, he also has a tendency for some awkward social encounters, and those. This kind of goes hand in hand with the fact that you can't tell if he's trolling or not a lot of the time, and I will specifically refer us to an incident from 2015, which my friends and I still laugh about sometimes because it was just so spectacular. In 2015, Conflict was mowing people down in GSC, in SPL, like any other year, pretty much, right? But the thing is with Conflict is that he's great at GSC, obviously. He knows that. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. Conflict also really likes letting you know that he knows that. And this is where it kind of starts to get blood boiling if you're on the other end of it, but if you're detached from it, it's pretty much the funniest thing in the universe. So, he was really feeling himself at this time. And, after one game in particular, I don't remember the details, he just, he won. And then he comes into the SPL IRC channel. Yeah, this is how long ago that was. We weren't even using Discord yet. And he comes to the SPL IRC channel, and he goes, "Another week of perfect plays, smiley face." Now, I don't know your situation, you, the kind viewer / listener, and if you fully appreciate just how hilarious / infuriating that is. I mean, now it's hilarious because it's 10 years later, obviously. But at the time, this guy was winning, and to just kind of, I guess nowadays the term is glaze, but just sing his own praises like that was just astonishing. And if he's annoying you, as he tended to because he was on the Sharks, who were famously the most obnoxious team in the league for a long, long time. Nowadays, the Tyrants are known for being, the team in recent memory that, trolls and, talk shit and is generally obnoxious to deal with. Before them, the Sharks were the original version of that. And Conflict he was in that, like, he wasn't aggressive, not really. He had that kind of, like, affable manner to him, but he would just so casually say these things that were so infuriating and seemed to have no idea how infuriating they were, which either, and to this day, I still don't know if he was really trolling or he was just like that. And I say this, I like Conflict. I think he's a great, all that, I cannot emphasize this enough. But that was really funny. And it turned into like a joke where, then, some guys like my buddy Jirachi, of course, were joking about, oh, look at Conflict, you can't stop him, and this was around the time CTC had just watched The Godfather for the first time, and he was LARPing as Don Corleone, and through doing this, everyone started referring to themselves as Dons. It's like, oh yeah, that's a Don team I just built, it destroys the metagame, it's some Don squad stuff. It's like, oh yeah, I'm a Don at Oris because I double switched to Keldeo real good. And that sounded ridiculous to me, but hey, people really liked it at the time. So, what was done was, Don Conflict or Donflict became his new moniker. But because Jirachi is a funny guy, he pushed it further, and it wasn't just Donflict. It was Papa Donflict. And when Conflict was constantly talking about how fucking great he was at GSC, then he pushed it even further into Papa Don Memeflict. And in case you think I'm making this up, he literally played an SPL game on that name. He registered it on Showdown, and I will pull it up, after this replay ends, for those who are watching. But yeah, so Papa Don Memeflict and his perfect plays became a running gag for a while, and I would hate for it to disappear entirely. But yeah, so that was really something. So, now, the German disease is not just restricted to Conflict, of course. The German disease has also been witnessed, again, respectfully, I can't say that enough, it has been witnessed across many other players. Cosine 180, who personally fucked me over pretty good, because I drafted him for SPL and I had no idea he was addicted to Tag Pro, and when I would ask him to give a shit about the tournament, he would say, oh, sorry, I'm volunteering for 8 hours a day with disabled children because I'm trying to get into college, And then after the tournament, I found out he was playing this game called Tag Pro. I don't know if anyone still plays it anymore, but it was really popular back then. He was playing it 8 hours a day, and he was just bullshitting me. And that made me pretty mad. And then I was really happy when my friend CL beat him in Smoking Tour Finals. Nothing. It's not like a permanent grudge or anything. He was a nice guy. I just, tried to get him to give a shit about the tournament that he signed up for. And that was clearly too much for him at the time. So, yeah, and apparently, like, his friends knew about the Tag Pro thing. They were like, BKC, you didn't know he was playing Tag Pro 8 hours a day? He's on the leaderboard. It registers how much time he's playing. So, yeah, I don't know if that was a true example of the German disease, but it was just, like, such a stunning display of arrogance, such a readiness to lie, so spectacular. Like, just... Listen, everyone who's ever tried to, like, get out of something on the internet is like, oh, my grandma's sick, Like, you know how many sick grandmas these people have? But he decided, you know what? I want plausibility on this lie. That tournament, I also had X-Ray on my team, and he was great. I love X-Ray. He is a tremendous player, not just Gen 6, in many generations. To my recollection, he was really putting in a lot of work in Gen 8. But... X-Ray, with all due respect, I have witnessed X-Ray mention how perfectly he has played in the Smog Tours lobby after more games of his than I can count. And I'm not even disputing the fact that he probably did play extremely well. I think when you say you play perfectly, that's a really big stretch. Because I can think of, every great player ever and, their biggest, best games. And even then, saying perfectly, think of, your favorite McMegan performance and calling it perfect. Even that incredible famous game against Hsung in Gen 5 OU from Smoking Tour Finals, which was the original Pokemon's Greatest Battles that I did on this channel. Even that one, perfectly, I don't know. Or even his recent heroics against Bad Dummy for the SPL Finals tiebreaker, which I covered for the Smogan channel. If you're not aware of that, you can go check it out. Even that, perfectly, he came close for sure. But to say you played perfectly, I would not dare to make that statement personally. But that's me. And who am I to decry someone for confidence in their ability/performance. Holy shit, I think I might have left my food in the oven too long. Give me 2 seconds. Okay, I didn't. Excellent. Well done me. I love that moment at the beginning of Hot Fuzz when when he's in the office trying to negotiate his way out of his promotion, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'd want to retire to the country in like 20 years or so, but it's happening now." And the officer just goes, "Well done, you." It's a very Czech thing to say, funnily enough. Dobře. Anyway, so yeah, I don't have issue with X-Ray and his play. Obviously, you'd be psychotic to doubt his skill. I just find I personally do not have the what's the word? The gall, the audacity, the fucking balls to no. I just don't have the temerity to proclaim that I, played a game perfectly. Even if I think I played a game really, really well. Perfectly, I don't know. And the final exemplar of the German disease, which, again, I say with all love, is my buddy Fakes, who... I used to get up in the morning and argue with this guy for fun. Not even about Pokemon, just, whatever. It's like, no, The Dark Knight is not the pinnacle of cinema. Oh, but Heath Ledger's performance is so badass. You have the taste of a fucking 12-year-old. Yeah, but The Dark Knight is so fucking cool, and I'm being unfair to him, obviously. I'm exaggerating. Because he likes to give me shit, I like to give him shit. Isn't the way guys bond with each other fucking stupid? Anyway, or it can be at times. Also, for those wondering about Realis's Gliscor heroics, and who are listening, because if you're watching, then you see him firsthand. But in this battle, he faced a team that was specifically built to handle, his Gliscor heroics, and he's gotten his Gliscor trapped by Weavile repeatedly, to my recollection. I'm not really paying attention. And, Gliscor still doing its thing. It's unbelievable. Anyway, so yeah, Fakes doesn't really do the thing where he... I promise I don't mean this as a hit piece. And again, I hope I have, sung enough praises for the German way of Pokemoning to back that up. Anyway, so Fakes doesn't really do the whole I played perfectly thing. He just has that thing where he'll have like a moment of social awkwardness, because... and it's hard to describe in detail. Once he was playing my teammate, actually, Starmaster, in SPL, and they scheduled for a time, and then Fakes was like, hey, Star, let's play earlier, and Star was like, oh, no, I can't / don't want to, or whatever, and then Fakes got really mad because he thought Star was putting the game off and they could have gotten it done earlier. And even though they scheduled for a certain time, and that time was, upheld. So things like that. And I feel a little bad now, pointing Fakes out as worse. So I will, try to compensate by saying Fakes is also an incredibly talented player, and he has a track record going back, over a decade. And when he tries, he is an incredible team builder. I was giving him shit until not too long ago for spending, the better part of a decade using nothing but other people's teams. And then he kind of took it to heart and he started building teams again. He started making some of the best Gen 5 OU teams we've seen in a long time. So I knew he had it in him because when he started, he was a great team builder. Then he got lazy along the way. But yeah, so this is what I refer to as the German disease is a widespread kind of thing. You can encounter it in many forms, but obviously, calling it a I don't know if it's like truly fair to refer to it as the as an attribute of the nationality of the players involved. It's just, very unfairly, yes. A lot of people, when interacting with some of these gents, they will go, it's like, oh my god, why is it always the Germans? And not that I don't approve of, obviously, but it's more the fact that these kinds of behaviors keep popping up. And those, there was a player named Steve Angelo from about a decade ago. He was a great guy, super nice. Also, his name was not really Steve Angelo. I think his name was Tim. But he just picked the name. And he and CTC had this thing going on where they were calling... somehow he ended up with the name Lazar Angelov, because it was one of the monikers CTC was giving himself, and it applied to Steve. Whatever. Anyway, there was just an incident when Steve Angelo was going to be late to his SPL game. I think he locked himself out of his apartment or something, actually, funnily enough. And he locked himself out of his apartment, and he was going to miss the SPL game, and then he angrily demanded that the other team provide a substitute on his schedule. I don't remember the details of that, but it was a fucking stunner of an event. And when that was going around, it was like, oh my god, what is this? This was in the wake of, some stuff. But this was also the SPL where Mazar was in the process of spectacular cheating, and I think Steve Angelo was on his team, actually. Although I don't think Steve was involved in the Mazar stuff because he was playing OU. So yeah, but he was a very good player. So again, incredible players, and generally, this is what I mean. Either super nice guys or, the ego's out of control. obviously it's not that black and white. Like there was another great German player in Oris named Get This Money, or GTM, or Alex from OLT, as he was known, which was an in-joke from a Skype chat called OLT chat, which quickly turned into not being about OLT and just became, a giant circle jerk. Yeah, and then it was Alex from OLT, then it became AFOC, just abbreviated, so in-jokes in the Pokemon world are wild stuff. But, yeah, he was a great player, and I think he was pretty humble. I don't think he was, like, without ego completely, but, I don't think it was anything outrageous, so obviously, I'm talking broad generalizations, remembering funny instances. Like, okay, I was talking about how X-Ray is just talking about how perfectly he played all the time, but what else happens is that X-Ray is one of the most self-critical players you will ever see. And he is an incredible team builder. Again, I cannot stress enough how much I appreciate anyone who builds their own teams. When it becomes increasingly easier to be a pokey-paced player. And yet, X-Ray, pretty much exclusively builds his own teams from what I know, especially in Oris, and they're all really, really creative and really, really good. And you don't let that doesn't happen if you don't have incredible levels of self-awareness and self-criticism. You don't just churn out great team after great team and go, oh yeah, I rule, without ever really looking at yourself. So I think that whole like I played perfectly stuff is more or less just even Conflict doesn't do it that much anymore, but for a while he was really driving people crazy, and people were telling him, dude, you're being really obnoxious, and he would be like, oh, what, I'm just happy that I played well. And it's you really wonder. Anyway, but yeah, the X-Ray thing is not really a thing. It's just, yeah. So again, I must stress that this is for humorous purposes above all else. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So, I hope you guys have enjoyed this new kind of video. I can't wait to do it for France and Italy and Spain. Spain will be tough. I don't know if they have a trademark of style, but so much. But yeah, I think Brazil definitely used to have a kind of house style to them. Oh, before I forget, it should also probably be mentioned that you may be wondering, does this apply? What I'm talking about, does this apply to Austrian players? I think it does. Because, for example, Bedschubert was one of the best RBY players for a very long time. He was from Austria. I met him a couple times in real life. He was super nice. We went to see Swans together. It was great. And he was, super normal guy. Great sense of humor. And he was very, very humble too. He was one of the best RBY players, but if you knew that, it wasn't because he told you. And that's what I really appreciate. It was because he had the respect of his fellow RBY players. They held him in such high esteem. Or Mail, another buddy of mine who I had met a couple times. I stayed at his apartment, actually, in Vienna when I visited in 2016. I really loved that. That was a great time. He actually... he told me to go up to this girl and tell her I was Harry Potter. And it worked. It was fucking crazy. Anyway... yeah, so I'll always owe him for that. Yeah, I put on a bad British accent, actually, and she was like, do you think you're funny? And I said yes. And then she kept clowning on me because I was 20, and as soon as I told her that, she had, like, a heart attack. I think she was, like, 27 or something. But, yeah. Anyway, and Mail, regarding Pokemon, he won, the official Smogon tournament in Sun and Moon, in Ultra Sun and Moon. He was a great, great player. He's amazing at DPP. Could play a ton of tiers. He's very good at Black and White, good at Advance, and he was also the nicest guy on the planet, and very intelligent too, actually. Great music taste, and he would never. He had some of the least ego I've ever seen on a person, let alone a Pokemon player. And then you have Charm Flash from Austria, who has, I don't know what's going on with him. He's incredibly talented at Gen 7. He understands the metagame like few people ever understand anything. But he's also got a real, trolling or shit talking streak where just out of nowhere he'll be winning and he'll just, tell his opponent that they suck, And then this happened a couple years ago in SPL. Was it a couple years ago? Or was it last year? Whatever. Yeah, so I don't know. I think the German disease can apply to that as well. You also may be wondering, does the German disease apply to German-speaking Swiss players? And at this point, I'll tell you, number one, I'm not aware of any Swiss players in general. I think there might be one, but I don't remember which one it is. So, yeah, I'm not aware of any Swiss players in general. And you have now reminded me of the French-speaking Swiss girl who broke my heart. So thanks for that. That accent. So yeah, I'll definitely have to do the French style next. So yes, that is basically all from me, I think. We're just gonna ride out this replay of Fakes' in which he is wielding a very, very excellent Gen 5 OU team. Using Magnezone on Psychic Spam, thereby allowing him to use a Leech Seed Protect Ferrothorn, which is one of the most insufferably obnoxious sets ever, but you can't really use it because, then you lose to knock off Ferrothorn, or you're troubled by it, you have a tough time breaking through it, stuff like that. And with Zone, you open it up beautifully. You open up Latios plus Spikes beautifully, Zan plus Spikes. Oh, just the Zone on this team is so beautiful. I could dedicate a video to it. So, yeah, now the Leech Protect Pharaoh is stalling out a Choice Banded Kyurem Black. So, that is all I have for this one. Thank you so much for watching. Again, I hope nobody took too much offense to this. This is all in fun. And again, for the millionth time, I have nothing but the highest admiration for the German Pokemon playing style. Yeah, so the Starmie is going to get Power Whipped. Look at that German optimization. Fakes builds cars in his free time. No, he doesn't. But yeah, when he's not bombing down the I forget what the name of the highway where you drive, super, super fast. Is it the Autobahn? Whatever. I actually thought about doing my master's in Berlin, and if I don't do it in Berlin, I'd want to do it in Paris, so fitting. But I've gone to Berlin several times at this point. I really, really loved it every time I went. When I was 21, after the darkest moment of my life, 15 days after the darkest day of my life, then I went to see Swans in Berlin by myself. I didn't even have enough money to get back, and it was incredible. And then I went several other times. I had a job there, I did, and I had a great time about a year and a half ago. And before that, I went to Berlin just to see Akira in a theater. And I keep wanting to go back there to see some movies. Now I have to be careful with my money with my own upcoming movie. But I would really love to do that in Paris as well. But yeah, one thing at a time. So thank you so very much. And I will see you in the next one.